the wants of just breakdown and two-step and gang vocals. Like, it was high school metalcore, hardcore kids' wet dreams.
Somebody hit somebody!
What's up, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Pit Therapy Podcast.
How does that go again?
Talk about memories over here.
Okay.
Oh man, we probably should cut that.
No, dude, it's staying in. Look, editing sucks. I'm not editing unless you say something that's like extremely cancelable. Then I'll edit it. But if it's like even just a little cancelable, I'll probably leave it in. So,
oh well, good to know. Hopefully, the wife doesn't watch this one then. So
Dude, neither one of our wives watch any of these. So
that's true.
Don't worry.
That's true. Every now and again, I'll throw it on in the car and like force her to listen to it. Be like, "What do you think?" And she's like, "Cool. I've heard all of this for 15 years." So
I was like, I don't know what you guys are talking about. So
yeah,
I was
exactly.
like, at least like turn the volume down and press play so we can at least get some plays. But
Exactly. But,
yeah.
Dude, how have you been? How's the last week for you?
It's all right, man. Like, it's finally starting to get not freezing. Like, I think today was like 65. It was awesome. So, yeah, I can actually like go outside again. It's nice.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't do it. I don't do cold weather. Yeah. Last night though, we were under flood warning. Like, you should have seen, there were cars like floating down the road and stuff. It's crazy.
Cause why?
Because of rain.
Okay.
What else do you want me to say to that?
Well, I don't know. I mean,
there was lots of water. God told us to put all the animals in our car, and
oh yeah, I'm an idiot. Shut up.
Look, you're tired, man. You've got a newborn still, so
dude, it's
all is forgiven.
Dude, this was the week I was just telling you before. I feel like it's all settled in terms of like, now I'm exhausted. I was running off of just like, I don't know, adrenaline for 2 weeks. It seems like, to like try to get everything done. It's gone this week and I am just trashed. So it's been rough.
You had like family over and stuff too, right?
Yeah. I mean, Ashley's mom, my wife's mom came like to help out while we were having the baby and everything. So she's been gone for a week, but I mean,
that makes it hard. I mean, you still have to like kind of take care of them, while you're still trying to take care of your wife and a baby and your kids, so.
I mean, I'll be honest. I did not take care of my mother-in-law while she was out here. Like she was very, very helpful. She took care of our 3 kids. My wife and I, we were able to sleep a lot more and like actually try to rest in a few things. So no, she was very helpful and happy that she was out here. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know why this week all of a sudden is kicking my butt so much more than the last 2, but it has been rough. So we'll make it through this though. I listen to a lot of music, so that's good.
It's pretty like aggressive music too. So hopefully that, maybe that'll help. I mean,
other than MyChildren MyBride, who we're talking about, like, it's been a week of deathcore, hardcore. It's been a lot of heavy. Other than I say Rocky Votolato today. That new, I shouldn't say new. It's 2022, but
I think I did listen to it. I don't know.
I was telling you, it's much more like Bon Iver-ish, much more indie folk.
I don't mind. Yeah, see, I don't mind like folk, like when it's weighed more on the folk side, but just like indie stuff, man, I really struggle with. So. Yeah. But I like Rocky Votolato, and so I trust him. Like, I'm sure I could listen to it,
Yeah, I mean, there was a few albums in there that I didn't love as much listening to him, but this one kind of caught my attention going back to it. So, I don't know. There's that.
So we had like one of the best text threads with Chris this week when I was listening to Paramore. Like I was literally,
gosh.
I had to go, like I was running a couple errands for my wife, and I read a text as I was getting out of my truck and like just started laughing, and all these people just started looking at me because like I wasn't laughing at anything, right? I was just laughing because of the stuff we were talking about. But we're gonna have to do an episode on them because it's too good.
Yeah.
It's too good.
Yeah. No, that was interesting. We were talking about bands who their first album was their best kind of thing. And your take on Paramore is ridiculous, by the way.
It's not though.
But it got pretty entertaining there for a minute. So yeah, what else were you listening to though? So you listened to Paramore. What else were you listening to this week?
I don't know, dude. I was so busy. Like, I don't really listen to a lot. My wife has had the new Bad Bunny album, like on repeat. And I'm not a Bad Bunny fan, but I can respect how he did this album. Cause like he's Puerto Rican. So like he recorded it in Puerto Rico. He like it's all recorded live, right? He brought in a bunch of like local people to do background vocals on a lot of songs and stuff. Then when he released it, he was going around to just like shops around Puerto Rico and was like doing like little release shows like in music stores and stuff or like coffee shops. And he even did one like he stood on top of the like cover of a gas station, you know, like the top part that covers the actual what do you call them? And he like was on top of that and like played a show for people and they all just like were in the street dancing. I don't know, like it's not my favorite music, but like the way that he's handled this album is very much how like the hardcore scene handles albums. And so I can respect it, you know?
So that sounds cool and all, but is Puerto Rico still Puerto Rico? I mean, all the crypto bros moved there. Was he playing just to a bunch of like
no,
kids walking around the streets and stuff?
Like, look, man, like you should look up some information. It's like the whole purpose of his album was like getting back to the roots of like where he's from. It's 100% not about like the crypto bros that are doing to Puerto Rico what they did to Hawaii, you know, 20 years ago. So this was very much like you know, like a grassroots type album from there. It's cool. Look, I'm like some of the songs are all right. I don't mind Latin music. I'm not a big reggaeton fan, but
right.
I respect how he did this album. So,
all right, I'll take your word for it because I'm not going to listen to it. So, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. This week, like I said, it was a lot of like old MySpace deathcore, a lot of metalcore and hardcore. But we did have Jaws Presents out here. She is bringing handguns and Man Overboard acoustic. Just the guitar players coming, and they're playing next week on Thursday. So I think I'm gonna go catch that. And I've been listening to a lot of pop punk because of that too.
Yeah,
like I love that crap. Is like cheesy as corny as the Man Overboard lyrics are, which I know they are. They're stupid.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I love it. So
I could never really get into Man Overboard, but I do like handguns. I think handguns are pretty cool.
Yeah, handguns is dope. And then it's gonna be with Johnny Baseball, and I think they're called like Wasatch Pines, I think is what they're called. So no, it's gonna be a cool show. It's gonna be fun. I'm trying to talk my wife into going with me. She's like, I don't know if I can leave for 2 hours, 3 hours. I'm like, you're fine.
Yeah.
You're okay. I promise.
Yeah.
Nothing will happen. You're good. So
yeah. I saw that. I think we talked about it. Life Cycles is playing. That's probably the next show I'm going to. That's in a couple of weeks. But
yeah,
honestly,
you not to get stabbed.
Yeah. I haven't listened to much music or paid attention to shows. I've just been reading this stupid book that's been like, well, books, I should say, because it's like taking over my life.
Yeah, so, you were telling me about it.
Yeah, it's super nerdy, but the Stormlight archive books, there's like 5 of them, and I'm on the 3rd book right now, and each book's like over 1,000 pages. And I read the first 2 in like 2.5 weeks. So it's becoming a problem, man.
It is. You're not even freaking texting me back half the time now.
No, dude, I'm pretty much just reading. They're good. I recommend it to anyone. if you like fantasy books. So
What the author's name again?
Brandon Sanderson.
That's right.
I actually think he's from Utah.
Yeah, pretty sure.
Yeah.
Or at least has ties here or something. I don't know. Something like that.
They're good books though, but I don't do anything else. I will work and then I just freaking read that. It's good.
Sick. Oh man. Yeah. I am hoping that I get some energy back, dude. I've gotten so fat over the last like 3 months, 4 months between the holidays and then prepping for a baby and stuff like that. I am so out of shape and I finally just feel gross.
Yeah.
Like it's time to kick my butt.
You were like a beanpole before anyway, so I'm sure you're just normal now.
Nah, dude. It's too much.
Yeah.
It's too freaking much, man.
Show me your love handles then.
Oh, dude. Off camera, man. I'll do a little jiggle for you.
Yeah, the truffle shuffle.
That's right. Yeah. But, oh man.
Yeah. Well, I'm playing I got roped into playing in like an old man basketball league. Well, it's actually not an old man basketball league. It's any age, like 18 and above. But the team that I'm playing on are a bunch of old guys. Like I'm the youngest guy on it. So we'll see how it goes. I went and shot some hoops like a couple days ago, and my freaking arms the next day were sore from like doing the basketball shooting motion. You know, like I was just shooting around. I wasn't even playing. I was just shooting around, and I was out of breath in like 30 minutes. So it's gonna be a problem.
Yeah. I was supposed to go play last night, and there was no way I would have died.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I'm gonna feel real bad playing, but. We have 2 guys on our team that played college ball. So, and one of them's like 6'8".
Yeah.
So the goal is like, just get those 2 the ball and I'll just stand in the corner, you know?
There you go.
So I can shoot like a corner, like standing 3, right? Like not coming off screens or anything, but you just put me in the corner. Down. I think I could make more. I can shoot better than 20%. Wide open on a corner 3.
I don't know. I'm about 10, so double my average, and you're good. So
yeah, maybe. So I'm glad though. I miss playing basketball. That was a big part of my life growing up. So
yeah, for sure.
Playing with balls.
Well, man, we're all over the place today. So, well, sick. So you said no real new show announcements, anything like that you saw?
Man,
I don't think I saw.
No.
The one last week that we were trying to remember, and I couldn't remember who it was. It was Between the Buried and Me and Protest the Hero.
That's right.
That was the one that we forgot to mention. Which are you fans of those bands?
I was fans of earlier Between the Buried and Me.
Which they're playing early stuff. They're playing Alaska. Oh, really? Yeah, they're playing the full Alaska and full. What was the next album? I don't know. Anyways, so it's their really early technical stuff.
It was still pretty heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. Protest the Hero's all right. You know, I
like their early stuff. They fell off after a couple of albums for me, but I know people are obsessed with Protest the Hero.
So, I mean, look, they're incredibly talented bands.
Yeah.
Like absolutely incredible. It's just not for me necessarily. Like, I don't know that I could sit down and listen to math rock and prog rock like all day, you know?
Yeah.
I'm not smart enough for it, you know?
It starts hurting your brain after a minute.
Yeah, it does.
I gotcha.
So, but that's a cool tour though.
It will be. That will be a really cool tour. I might go catch it. I mean, if I'm around, like it's definitely one that I have circled as something I'd like to go see, but we'll see if I make it out. I don't know what this year's going to look like for me in terms of like shows and stuff. Went pretty hard last year, so
yeah,
we'll have to see.
There's a few bands that I'm going to go see the couple big ones we've talked about, like the Comeback Kid and the Obituary one. I want to make it to the Poison the Well one if I can. And then there's a couple local bands like Life Cycles, Virtue's playing.
Yeah.
Like I know Die Young's going to release music, so I'm sure they'll make it up this way. Like there's some of these smaller bands that we've talked about that I really want to go out and catch. So
Yeah, for sure. For
we'll see.
sure. So, well, we'll just jump into this then. My chisel, my bizzle.
My chisel, my potato. I forgot what he's called. We were the corniest people.
Dude, MyChildren MyBride. This is a band that the reason why we are talking about Paramore is bands that fell off after their first album. Unbreakable, absolutely insane. So freaking good. And it's funny because I hopped on Reddit and I was just reading some posts and stuff like that. There's a lot of people who don't like these guys. And I was like, at all. They're just like, it's just generic metalcore. It was the same sound as everyone else. I'm like, yeah, but
in which subreddit though? Like the hardcore one or like everything? Okay.
I mean, I just Google search MyChildren MyBride, right? And I just start clicking through the different Reddit posts. So it's crazy to me because like that album specifically, Unbreakable, between the technicality of it, the wants of just breakdown and two-step and gang vocals, like it was high school metalcore hardcore kids wet dreams. You know what I mean? Like it was just nonstop.
Wow.
And like it was it's still a fantastic album. And I immediately fell in love with it. Like Matt Hastings, his voice, I think that's his last name. His voice, his vocal tones, I've always said I'm very much like that mid-tone that you can understand a lot of what they're saying. I love that. And then he does just a little bit higher, just a little bit lowers. It treaded on the line of deathcore, but it was still in the metalcore realm kind of thing. Like it literally just like checked all the boxes off for me at that time. And to this day, it checks all the boxes off for me. I love this album front to back. You know, we've said some pretty crazy, like they're goated albums kind of thing. I won't go that far with this one. There's better metalcore, stuff like that. But for me personally, like the singability of it, everything with it, I love it. And I will always love this album. What about you?
No, I agree. I've said it before. I'm not a huge like deathcore fan. And so this was a good in between for me. Cause there were parts that was like just deathcore enough, but it wasn't too much for me to where I was like, nah, I'm not interested in it, you know? But I feel like I can see why people might not like these guys. Like if you're my brother's age and you kind of grew up in this like really raw metalcore, you know, Poison the Well, Earth Crisis, even all the post-hardcore that was all like very raw metallic sounding. I could see how you could look at younger generation. Like my brother probably looks at MyChildren MyBride how we look at a lot of beatdown bands today.
That's fair.
You know what I mean? Like kind of corny, kind of gimmicky, but man, like we freaking loved it. You know, like this was our generation's beatdown. Like this is what I think all the bands that were like maybe not traditional hardcore bands, but still were kind of in the scene wanted to sound like. Big 808s, like big bass drops, huge breakdowns. We'll talk about their second album, or is it their third album that has the like, it's like a 5-second pause in between the like, you know what I mean? Like that's the kind of gimmicky crap that like, I think as we've gotten older, we've kind of made fun of. Yeah. But when we were 16, 17, getting into this stuff, like this is 100% what we wanted to hear, you know,
100%.
So I do think though that this album aged very well.
Yeah.
You know, I think with where a lot of the focus is on metalcore and hardcore and stuff today, like I think this album still has a place. Yeah. You know, I don't think, you know, outside of Headshot, I don't think any of the other songs are like gimmicky or corny or whatever. I actually think they're solid, right? Some of the lyrics are a little cheesy, but it's not any more cheesy than any of the other beatdown bands we listen to.
No, 100%. I totally agree with you. The lyrics do get a little cheesy, but I mean, that's what 18, 19, 20
Yeah.
year old in the big gauges hot topic era did. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Like, you want to talk about cheesy lyrics, the cheesiest lyrics you can look at are Zamir. Ask your
Right.
girl what my dick tastes like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like how much more cringe can you get than that? You know what I
And
mean?
that's probably why I like these guys, because it was a mirror, but without the like full blown cringe. You know what
Sure.
I mean?
Just
So
slight cringe.
just like cringe. And like but like being in high school, listening to these guys, like we were slight cringe anyways. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
100%.
So
100%.
yeah. No, and I remember seeing these guys, like whether you like them or not, like their shows were wild,
Right.
like downright violent most of the time. So
Right. Right. So, real quick, their backstory, My Children My Bride, they come from Madison, Alabama. They started around 2004, 2005. The original band was comprised of four guys, and one of those, his name's Kyle Ray. He's the current guitarist for No Cure. Yeah. So these guys, they actually put out just self-produced album called Having the Heart for War in 2005, which I sent you a link to that on YouTube. You can't find it on Spotify or anything.
streaming or anything.
Yeah, but it is on YouTube. Did you listen to it at all?
Yeah, when you sent it to me, yeah, I listened to it a little bit.
It's very raw in terms of like production quality and stuff like that, but I really like it.
Yeah.
It
I
has
think you I
a
think you like it now though. I think if you would have listened to it back in 2005, you probably wouldn't have liked it.
Oh, I disagree. I
Really?
actually think that I would have enjoyed it probably more in 2005 because we were listening to so many bands like this, so many rough and raw demos of metalcore, deathcore, things along those lines. I mean, maybe not exactly in 2005, but if I had heard that in like 2008 when I had heard Unbreakable, I think I would have still liked it. You
Really?
know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
I don't know. 2008, you were
it,
listening to like freaking Attack. So I don't know, man.
I listened to deathcore too. I was listening to See You Treachery and stuff like that as well. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah,
and
see fine.
I feel like it's a little bit more deathcore than Unbreakable was. I think it's like song number 3. I think it's called In Due Time or something like that. Yeah, In Due Time. It has like a mathcore part where it's like Tony Danza-esque kind of
Right.
thing and gets really intense kind of thing. So like they were experimenting, and then you get to Unbreakable and they go full blown metalcore, 2-step
Yeah.
breakdown, hot topic core,
Yeah.
essentially. Right. So, but after they put out Unbreakable, they lean into the Christian. This is when they fully say, we are a Christian band. And they kick Kyle Ray out because he was I shouldn't say outspoken, but he was an atheist. And he
Mm.
it like wasn't like a secret. You know what I mean? So they get into the Christ core stuff that we were talking about. So we saw these guys on like Scream the Prayer.
Yeah.
We saw these guys. I think we saw them with a Plea for
Parkway
Purging.
Drive.
We
Was
saw
it?
them with
It might have been
Parkway and stuff.
Saw him with Parkway. Yeah.
Yeah. But we saw them a few times, and they were often with, Christian bands and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So, but yeah, so that's their background. This album came out on Solid State. It was produced by Joey Sturgis, mixed by Adam D of Killswitch, and Adam D is the one who did the Parkway stuff. This feels technically like a lot of Parkway stuff does.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So, song wise, it kicks off with Faithless, and that opening guitar riff, dude,
It's
just
perfect.
like it's the perfect intro to this album.
Mhm.
Like it's technical, it's fast, and then it's like speeds up, and there's breakdowns in that. Out of all
Well,
the songs on, go for it.
I don't know. Like you hear the intro, and I don't think you really know what you're about to get into, right? Because then it starts. You're almost like, oh, this might be like a power metal album,
Yeah,
because like the double bass is going, and it's just like a galloping type thing, and then it stops, and then it just goes right into like a really fast metalcore where he's screaming and stuff, and I don't
yeah,
know, it just catches you a little off guard, and then it's just in your face the rest of the time,
right, right. So on this album, I said to you, I think that this album would have got lost without Headshot, and you disagreed with me.
Yeah, yeah,
Why?
because like Headshot's cool, but they still checked, I think, every box that they needed to check. I mean, you just named it all, right? Huge breakdowns, cool two steps, gang vocals, like parts that you like can rush the stage to, Uh, I think Headshot's like a really fun song, and I do think it helped them, but I think they would have still like I don't think they would have not played shows or the shows they did if they didn't release Headshot. So
I don't know, man. I might disagree with you. I think that technically and skill wise, they definitely had the opportunity to do it. Um, I don't know who was really coming out of Alabama at the time. Maylene was coming out of Alabama. So I don't know really how that looked in terms of like tour packages and stuff like that. But, and I said this to Brandon of Slump, we were texting or messaging back and forth, and he said, Headshot for the win. I said, too many hardcore kids eternalize the words, I am the Master Chief. No one can mess with me.
yeah, they
Right?
even had shirts and stuff with it.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Like they brought people into the genre because of Headshot. I don't think that My Children, My Bride gets as big as they do without it. That's my opinion.
yeah,
I think that they got notoriety outside of just hardcore and metalcore because of this song.
that's okay. That might be fair. They maybe reached audiences that they wouldn't have technically reached without it, but like they were already on Solid State when this album came out, right? Like Solid State
Yeah.
already knew like that they were good. Solid State at this time in 2008 was one of the premier like record labels, whether you're a Christian or not, right? I think all bands are listening to the Devil Wears Prada and August Burn Dread and things like that are on Solid State at this time. I think My Children, My Bride would have fit right in even without this song. They would end up just touring with those bands. They did. Like, I think that like a non-hardcore kid or whatever is going to listen to Headshot and think it's funny, but like, I don't think you get popularity and you don't get people talking about this band almost 20 years after this album's released if it wasn't for more than just Headshot,
Yeah. And like I said, I do think that they definitely had the skill, they definitely had the technicality to build off of that. I just don't know. I don't know if this album gets lost in 2008 amongst everything else that's coming out without having that song that just caught people.
Yeah.
Because you think of the other technical bands. You mentioned August Burns Red. We talked about Parkway Drive. You know what I mean? There are big, big metalcore bands, technical bands. Even earlier, we were talking about like Between the Buried and Me and stuff like that. If you want to go even more technical and stuff like that, these guys, they're in a little bit of every realm, right? They're in a little bit of that technical. You almost have deathcore. You have a little bit of the metalcore. You have the breakdowns, the two steps. They had their toes in everything, which is why I wonder if they would have got lost without something as captivating
Yeah.
as Headshot.
Thinking about this though, like, okay, 2008, like, Plagues comes out in 2007. Messengers is 2007. Constellations is 2009. What was Norma Jean doing at this time?
That would have
All
been
I'm
Redeemer.
saying is that, is it Redeemer? Hold on, I'm pulling it up.
It's probably
the Anti-Mother's 2008.
Oh, that's what I meant. Yeah, not Redeemer.
I don't know outside of maybe like what's Amir doing in 2008?
That would have been Respect Issue.
Yeah, the respect issue is 2008. I guess the point that I'm making is like, I get that they kind of fit this bubble with bands like the Doors, Prada, August Burns Red, but I think they were still different enough. I mean, August Burns Red is faster, maybe more metal, maybe more raw sound, but they're not like, you're not seeing kids with like the huge gauges and as much as at an August Burns Red show or a Norma Jean show as you would a My Children, My Bride. Like, I think they did actually fit in like a niche part of the scene at this moment in 2008 that not a lot of these other bands were doing, right? Like, Plagues is a straight up Hot Topic album.
Yeah.
Like, My Children, My Bride still had some like really heavy elements to it that these other bands didn't really have, you know? So like, I don't know. I think they would have been just different enough from the August Burns Red or the Doors, Prada or Norma Jean or whatever to fit somewhere.
See,
and maybe the argument is that like, if it wasn't for August Burns Red and bands like that to where they could tie onto and be like, look, we're all kind of this cool Hot Topic-y metalcore / deathcore type bands. Maybe they would have actually gone a heavier route. Maybe they would have gone full blown deathcore.
Yeah.
Right. Because I think they fit closer to like an Amur and Acacia Strain than they did August Burns Red. Because August Burns Red and the Doors Prada were touring with like metal band, like not even like hardcore adjacent type band. You know what I mean? Like,
well, I mean,
those shows
August
like
Burns,
Under Oath.
They actually toured with August Burns Red and the Acacia Strain. They were on the.
So, okay, that's a tour. But I guess the point I'm making is like, I think My Children, My Bride, like the only reason why we think of them with like bands like August Burns Red is because they were able to attach that. If they hadn't, I think they would have gone a different route, right? Like, I think they would have gone more of like, I don't even know, more of a heavier deathcore type route. I don't know. That's just kind of what I'm thinking at that time.
I mean, I see what you're saying. The reason why I also question if this album would have got lost is because the next 3 albums got lost. You know what I mean? Like, they really capitalized on Unbreakable, but then you go to Lost Boys in 2010. Did you even listen to this album in 2010 when it came out?
No, I don't think I listened to anything after Unbreakable till like maybe 2018.
Yeah.
Might have been around when Vicious World came out.
I had this album. Well, I didn't buy it. I had it burned.
Unbreakable?
No, Lost Boy.
No. Okay. Yeah,
Lost Boy. Yeah, sorry. Okay. I'm moving on now.
We're moving on. Okay.
We're moving on. But well, before we move on real quick. So, obviously, well, I shouldn't say that. A lot of people know Headshot on Wings of Integrity is their number 1 song on Spotify. What is like the number 1 song off this album for you before we move on?
Dude, it's probably on Wings of Integrity, but I freaking love Boris the Blade.
Yeah.
The intro to Boris the Blade is one of the coolest things ever. Yeah. You know, Circle the Sky. The breakdowns in Circle the Sky are like ridiculous. Like it's borderline, like it's borderline over the top. You know what I mean?
Right. I have forever wanted to make a shirt ever since those CAPTCHA things came where it's like, click on all the street lights, click on the stop signs. I want to do a thing where it has 9 boxes with like different things and there's like skies in some of them. And it says circle the sky and there's one circle around the sky. So stupid, but make it happen. I'd buy it. So, yeah. No, I love those. I mean, those 3 songs, but front to back, this album is just fantastic. I actually might put Faithless, the first song, up there as one of my favorite.
Yeah.
Like, that is an introduction to My Children, My Bride. In general, it's like everything that you want. When we were doing our band and we tried to recruit a drummer who came from a punk background and we're like, hey, you got to learn some metal. We gave him this album.
Yeah.
And we said, listen to this drumming, work on this technicality and stuff like that. This was his blueprint for what we were trying to do, at least drumming wise. Sure. I'm nowhere close enough skilled enough to be able to play any of these kind of riffs. But
they're insane.
yeah,
I listening to it front to back. I couldn't believe how much I still remembered of like every part of these songs, like all the riffs, all the breakdowns, all the timings. Like I was showing my son Circle the Sky on the breakdown, and like, you know, he loved the like in just the over the top breakdown. But I just remember listening to the album. I was like, oh yeah, I remember every single part to all these songs because we probably listened to it a million times back in the day.
Oh yeah, no, that this album definitely, this got played a ton. It's in my car right now, and I've listened to it probably 12 times.
And I remember seeing them. Like I remember that Parkway Drive show at
Club Sound.
Club Sound.
Dude, that was wild.
Dude, people were like falling over the merch tables because the pit was so big at this show. So, and they were incredible. Like they sounded so good live. You know? Like I very vividly remember them. And I remember, I think we took friends too. And I was like, you guys should like really stand far in the back for this.
Yeah.
You know?
It was wild. So, I think that's the one that they covered Linkin Park, right?
Yeah. Oh, dude, I forgot about that. Yeah, sick.
Yeah, so good. Sick. So good. And then, like I said, they toured with, the last time I saw them was, I'm pretty sure it was the Acacia Strain, August Burns Red, Impending Doom that they went on.
Is that the one that was in like Layton?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
Had that weird like warehouse type of building. Yeah. Absolutely wild.
I guess I forgot they were on that show.
Yeah, they opened it.
Yeah, I remember being like, this is so weird. It's like 3 Christian bands and then the Acacia Strain.
Yeah, it was. It was a really weird lineup having the Acacia Strain there. But the Acacia Strain killed it. I freaking love the Acacia Strain.
That show was freaking violent, man.
It was. I've got a story about that one. I won't share it here, but it was a fun show. Cool. On to Lost Boy. So you didn't listen to this in 2010. I did have a copy of it. It did not get very much play. I'll be honest. I listened through it like maybe once, maybe twice kind of thing. And I tried to do it. Here's my problem with Lost Boy. It feels like they tried to recapture what Unbreakable had, but they did it worse. Like the 2-step parts are a little bit shorter, not as jumpy. The breakdowns didn't hit quite as hard. And the parts that are supposed to be singable just weren't fun anymore.
Yeah.
Like very specifically, like the song Lost Boys, where they spell out Lost Boy. I'm like, what? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It does have its moments, like Terra Firma. It opens great. I want to say
King of the Hopeless is my favorite song on the album.
King of the Hopeless was solid. I think it's Digital Rebirth was another one that was like, it's a good song. I don't know what it is though. It's just like not quite as heavy, or it just doesn't feel quite as heavy as what Unbreakable did.
See, this feels almost identical to like and I'm going to say this about their next album too. This feels just like a Devil Wears Prada album. Like they lost. It's funny because I feel like Unbreakable was actually like way more produced than this album was, right?
Sure. Okay.
Like you don't get the same like digital beat of the bass pedals, you know? Like you just don't. I don't know. This album to me, so Unbreakable just feels like they did what they wanted and they were having fun and it was heavy and it was kind of over the top. This album feels like they tried to be serious about it. And I don't know that you can be serious about what they were doing.
That's fair.
You know what I mean? You kind of like, if you're going to do this, you kind of have to lean into the over the topness or it doesn't work. Because it didn't work here and it doesn't work in the rest of the albums.
That's fair. That's fair. I think that you and I have a different opinion on the next album and especially Vicious World kind of thing. But like this one, it was too similar to Unbreakable, but it got a little bit more technical. It got a little bit more just main metal. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? A little bit more thrashy. You lost some of that deathcore aspect. Overall, it's still a good album. That's the thing.
sure.
There's nothing like bad about it,
It's
but
probably
there's
still better
nothing.
than most. I was just saying it's probably still better than most stuff coming out in 2010.
Sure. You know what I mean?
No,
Exactly. But we were also stuck in 2008. So
yeah,
that's why Unbreakable I was on repeat. So
I know.
yeah, I don't know. Like it didn't catch the same way. And I think that it shows in like the plays and everything like that. Like there's songs on here that only have like 87,000 plays and stuff like that. You go back to Unbreakable, and I mean, you're looking at On Wings of Integrity with 1.4 million. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
The
I just
lowest, it just wasn't the same.
I think for this album, like I would rather listen to like with this type of like the way that they did this album. Like I would rather just listen to A Plea for Purging.
Yes.
I would rather just listen to Gwen Stacy. You know what I mean? Like if you're gonna do this, just like kind of more raw, faster metalcore, like I would rather listen to those bands because like that's what those guys did, and they did it well.
Well,
What My
also,
Children My Bride did well was Unbreakable, and this wasn't it. You know
yeah.
what I mean?
To add to that, you know, you still had August Burns Red, who was still pumping out just
Yeah,
incredible
like
albums.
Constellations was like the year before this, and like that album is unbelievable. You know?
Yeah, exactly. You had that. You had Parkway. When did Deep Blue come out? I think the Deep Blue might have been 2008. So the album after Deep Blue,
Horizons,
or
or
no, Horizons was 2008. Deep Blue was probably around this time.
yeah,
Which, if you're going to
uh,
listen to like a little bit more mainstream metal with some breakdowns and stuff like that, you were probably listening to Deep Blue. You know what I mean?
so
At
Deep
least
Blue
I
is
was.
2010. Yeah.
Yeah. So same time, right? So like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, this is the album that, like I said, without some of those things that caught you on Unbreakable, they just got lost. And I think that
Yeah.
this is the example of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It
And
just got lost.
if we're talking about kind of more of the mainstream metalcore type bands that are starting to get huge at this time, it's the Ghost Inside, right?
Yeah.
Because Returners is 2010,
Oh, okay. And
and so
Returners. I love
that's what I'm saying is
Returners.
like I think the problem is that like My Children My Bride, like I wonder if they had maybe with the guitarist leaving, they had a little bit of like an identity crisis of like what they wanted to do. Like, do we stay the over the top just insane stuff that we do with Unbreakable, or do we try and be serious about this? And when they tried to be serious about it, I think they lost themselves because other bands were doing that better.
Yeah.
You know,
You know,
it's just like Attack. Like when Attack tried to be serious, it's like, dude, it's not fun anymore. You know, like this isn't fun anymore.
Good point. 2010 was interesting because this is also when like Haste the Day put out Attack of the Wolf King, which I know you like that. I do not like that album that much.
Well, I like it, but it's not as good as the last two albums. So like
Yeah.
I get where you're going with this. That like 2010 was an interesting time for a lot of these bands. Like you either knew who you were or you didn't.
It's weird because it feels like there was all of this stuff that, and again, maybe we have this all too much on a pedestal because this was our like formative years, right? 2005 to 2008, 9, those albums are just like, they're so high. They set the standard so high and everything for what we were listening to. I feel like all of a sudden they got some money, they got some production quality, and they lost some of the creativity.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what we saw around like this 2010. And maybe it was just because of how much music was out there. It was just so saturated. They just had to put something out just to keep up with it so they could continue to tour and just like ride this high that they were riding. And I'm not saying that just about My Children, My Bride. I'm saying that about like several bands.
Yeah.
Like 2010, I don't feel like was that great of a year for music.
Right.
There's a couple albums, like you mentioned, The Ghost Inside's great. 2009, you mentioned Constellations, August Burns Red. Like there's good albums in 2010, but there's a lot of duds.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's probably, you could go back and study it. It's probably when, things like hot topic are full force. Like this is when money and this kind of stuff ruins everything.
Yeah.
I'll bet you this is a lot of what happened at this time, is people probably thought like, oh, I can make a couple extra bucks if I just make uber generic music that like bands like the Devil Wears Prada are making money off of,
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know,
I don't
but
know.
like we said, it's not the worst album.
No.
It's got good songs on it. Like it's funny that we talk about, and maybe this is an old man take. Maybe people listen to our podcast and they're like, you guys are just a couple dumbass old people that have old man takes of everyone's first. Cause all we do is complain about bands about the later they go, the worse they get. Maybe we're wrong. I don't think we are though. We posted it on our social media and all these people answered us and they're like, yeah, I don't think I ever listened to anything after Unbreakable. So it's not just us, right?
Right. So, well, thankfully for you guys listening, all three of you, we did listen to the rest of it.
Yeah.
At least I did. Kyle may not have, but I did.
No, I did. I did.
So
Vicious World made me want to freaking put my dick in a blender, but I listened to it.
Alrighty. Guys, we're going to get an explicit mark on this episode for just the crap that we've said. So, the self-titled My Children, My Bride, 2012. All right. So this is where they really start to experiment. This is where they've changed it up. This is where they're doing other things. They get much more almost towards what current deathcore is starting to do. You know what I mean? There's some EDM influence. There's some goth influence. It's just darker in general kind of thing. All right. I'm going to start with you. What do you think about this one?
I don't like it. But like you said, I respect this album and Vicious World more than I do Lost Boy. I don't like it as much, but I respect it more because I can respect when a band experiments. All right. Like the sound is not always going to be for me. And I recognize that, but at least they decided not to just do Unbreakable Part 3. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I can respect that. I don't really like it that much. We were kind of texting back and forth and I don't know if you agree with me on this, but like, I would rather listen to Dead Throne from the Devil Wears Prada than this album. That's how I am. So I don't like the parts where they just kind of talk with like Impending Doom does that all the time, where they just talk with like the really dark music behind it. Not a fan of that. Okay. And they do that all the time in this album. So there's just stuff like that where like they never did that before. So I'm cool with them experimenting. Like that's awesome. You guys tried to go outside the box for what you do. Respect. It didn't land with me. So I'm going to say.
Gotcha. I will disagree with you. I was never a big fan of Dead Throne though. Like you and I have debated that one before. Yeah. I would say that honestly, this is on par to Dead Throne for me. I wouldn't say Dead Throne's above it or below it. I think that they're just very similar. Like you said though, they do start experimenting here. I do think that they tried to somewhat do Unbreakable Part 3 just with a more modern twist because they literally have another song on it called On Wings of Integrity.
Which is a good song though.
It is. Yeah.
At least they did the name justice.
It is a good song, right? Like if you're going to call it that, you might as well throw a straight in your face breakdown right from the get-go kind of thing. It gets a little bit interesting. So I was reading a couple interviews and stuff like that. And a guy asked the vocalist, like who some of his influences were and things like that. And he mentioned that Rob Zombie was a big influence with him, which a lot of these bands who start to go into this darker realm, they always bring up Rob Zombie, right? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, and God of Nothing, you hear it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the song before, however you say that, Anathema, you start to get some of that kind of 9 Inch Nails, a little bit industrial. You get some of that electronica stuff in there. God of Nothing, where he's like, Lucifer, You know
Yeah,
what I
dude.
mean? And stuff like that. Like, I'm like, that's Rob Zombie. That's where that comes from. You know what I mean? It just gets different. There were good songs on here. I probably like this album more than I like Lost Boy, just because I think it's what you said. They tried something.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say that they failed. There's some bands who fail. I don't think that this was a failure. It's just, it's not like it was like, oh my gosh, did you hear the new My Bride album?
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it. Like, if I heard a song, I wouldn't turn it off, but I'm not actively going to turn songs from this album on.
Yeah. And
Right.
like, so while we were going back through, I think Unbreakable obviously was probably the number one album I listened. I mean, so when we do this, the albums that I know well are actually the ones that I listen to the least.
Mm.
Just because I'm like, I've got to at least give the other albums a fair shake. You know what I mean? This was the one that I listened to the most. This is the one that I kept going back to. I don't like the clean singing on Vicious World. It gets too EDM, sludgy, that kind of stuff. Like, I'm not into all of that kind of stuff. Like, we've talked about it with like He Is Legend and the other bands who go down that trajectory and stuff like that. So this is the album where I was like, it's different. It's something I'm interested in. I'm going to listen to it, and I'm going to listen to it a lot. It is cheesy. There's some corny stuff on there. God of Nothing, in my opinion, it's just a cheesy, corny song. And I think that they were trying to lean into that Christianity thing, talking about the God of Nothing, what it was like at the War of Heaven, the fall of Satan and stuff like that, the fall of Lucifer. It didn't catch me. It was Oh Sleeper had an album like this. It wasn't Son of the Morning. The one after Son of the Morning, I think.
Oh, shoot, what is it?
I think
Old Sleeper is a pretty good call for the. Is it? It's not chill. Is it Chiller on Fire?
Maybe. I don't know. I didn't really listen to it because it was another one where it was just like, oh goodness, like I don't care for that much.
But this is very similar. I feel like in the type of band that we're talking about.
Yeah, I think that Oh Sleeper actually had a very similar trajectory, a very similar path to what MyChildren MyBride did. I think that both of them were in that Christian realm. They both started to experiment. They both started to tread out of there. This is also the time where like the For Todays, like you mentioned, A Plea for Purging, some of those like Christian bands are making a bigger name for themselves as well.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think that these ones, it just got lost kind of thing. But I mean, overall, was there anything on this album that really did stand out to you that you were like, that is something that I really do like?
No, it's look, we try our best, but not even, I don't even want to say that we try our best. Like, our goal is not to like be dicks about music, right? Like, these guys are musicians. They're clearly way more talented than you and I are.
Oh, 100%.
It's all speculation from just us. This is all our opinion. Like, we're not being mean about any of this stuff. It's just like, it genuinely just doesn't resonate with me.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I've said it about a bunch of bands that we've talked about. Like, when we start getting into like the more darker, deathy, sludgy type stuff, I've just never been a fan of that.
Yeah.
And so like nothing honestly really stood out to me on this album. I think it would be interesting to get an opinion from like a Chris Nichols who is really into that kind of stuff. Cause maybe he's like, no, dude, like this stuff is incredible. It was groundbreaking for that type of music. And maybe you and I are missing that. I don't think we are. Cause most people we talk to are like Unbreakable or nothing. So
yeah, I don't think that's going to be the case with these albums. I don't think that these laid the foundation for anything, to be honest. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's some good stuff on there. I think that like the second half of this album, Dreamcatcher's Black Cloud, Hell or High Water, and Observer, you get a lot more of what that kind of 2010 deathcore, 2010 to 12, where it's starting to transition to a little bit more melodic and stuff like that. There
Right.
was a lot of stuff that sounded like this. And this one starts to go where Lost Boy went a little bit more main metal and stuff like that. This one went back a little bit more deathcore.
Right.
And I think that that's why this album stands out more to me than Lost Boy, because I
Okay.
actually prefer the deathcore aspect more than I prefer the shredding aspect.
Which I don't. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we differ on that opinion. So yeah, I mean, overall, I actually think that it's a good album. Like, is it a great album? Am I running out to buy it? Would I buy it on vinyl? No. Like, I'm not gonna do that. But if we're gonna sit here and we're just gonna be like, hey, let's talk about My Children MyBride, I'm like, yeah, that self-titled album, I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
So
no, I agree.
So all right, we'll hit this last one. Vicious World.
Look, I made the joke about it. It's really not that bad. I think that people have to understand that you're in my perspective of a lot of these bands that we talk about. Unbreakable was literally like the pinnacle of our high school years.
Yeah.
Right. Like that album was like the foundation for a lot of stuff.
Right.
So looking at an album like Vicious World, like we'll make jokes about it. It's not a bad album musically. It's a good album. It's just we just it's just not us. Like we just have like it's hard to like objectively talk about these albums when you have such an attachment to an album like Unbreakable. So I know I made the joke. It's just a joke, guys. It's really not that bad of an album. And I think that honestly, I think that in 2017, I think this album's a little bit ahead of its time. I mean, we're 2024 or whatever, and Under Oath is doing this sound, right?
That's fair.
So like I think that this album maybe doesn't get the credit for people that listen to this kind of music. I can guarantee you it doesn't get the credit it probably deserves for being released in 2017.
That's very fair. And that's very valid. I think you're right, because I do think a lot of like the EDM, a lot of like the electronic stuff started coming in probably a little bit after this. Maybe I'm wrong, because like I don't listen to a lot of that kind of stuff. But this like darker industrialized EDM, heavier sound and stuff like that, I feel like I started to hear it more really in like the last 5 years, right? So 2019, 2020. So you're probably right, you know what I mean? But then like I start to think about some of the bands who are doing this kind of darker EDM sound, but maybe a little bit outside of the genre. I'm thinking of like the Black Audios. I'm thinking of William Control, a few of those bands. You know what I mean? And I'm wondering if they pulled some influence from that, but then put it into the heavier deathcore, metalcore sound.
This is not on Solid State, right?
No, this is their only album not on Solid State.
Okay, because you know what's interesting is like the band that I think of when I listen to this is like current Silent Planet. But see, Silent Planet was moving into this sound like years after this, because I think 2018 is was it Lost in what's it called?
When God
Sleeps or whatever.
Yeah.
Is that what it's called?
Is that when that was?
Everything Was Sound. No, I'm thinking of Everything Was Sound.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So I guess that's technically. Oh no, wait, no, sorry. That's 2016. So they didn't go full in. Silent Planet didn't go full industrial till like Iridescent, which is 2021. You know what I mean? Like you had the like EDM techno bands of like Icy Stars, Breathe Carolina, Attack, but that was all very like fluffy, happy, bright colored EDM. Like you and Josh were texting about when nu metal started getting into music. You know, that's what I'm thinking of here. Like this industrial nu metal. You have like Death Therapy. They're the guys from Becoming the Archetype that have like a 9 Inch Nails type that's a little heavier. Like that stuff's coming out after this. And so that's why I made the comment of like, man, I just don't know that people give it the flowers for maybe being one of the first to do this industrial EDM type, hybrid album.
And maybe it's not, maybe we shouldn't say the first, right? Because I'm sure that there were bands doing this,
Right.
but maybe one of the bigger bands,
Right.
One of the bands that had some notoriety and stuff like that. Because I think that you're right. I don't think that there were bigger acts who were doing it. And maybe MyChildren MyBride in 2017, since they hadn't put out an album in 5 years, maybe they weren't at that point considered one of the bigger acts, but they definitely got press for this album. You know what I mean? Because like they were a big band. They were one of those bands in the scene that people knew, that people went out to see, that people supported and stuff like that. So this album did get press.
Man,
I'm curious of what people thought. Yeah.
Yeah. No, me too. And I'm curious of what people thought that have different attachments to different genres.
Yeah.
Like, you and I. But if you're a modern metalcore guy, if you were a fan of Solid State in the last 5 years, you're probably going to love this album because everything on Solid State sounds like this.
Yeah.
Forevermore, Spirit Breaker, I don't know, The Overseer, all this stuff it sounds like this. And so, but this is 2017. All those bands were doing it in 2020,
Yeah.
So, I would like to know what people that are in current metalcore, if they went back and listened to this and been like, oh shoot, this is good,
Right.
We're not necessarily going to do that.
Right. No, I totally agree with you. I do think, so I went through and I listened to Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, and Act 4 just consecutively, and they actually flow together pretty well. You know what I mean? Like it's actually kind of interesting just to listen to those 4 songs together and how they do. But like Act 4, The Laughing Coffin, so you get a lot more of that industrial techno EDM type sound, but then he's like almost rapping over it and stuff like that. You know what I mean? That's just like the stuff that like I never really enjoyed.
Yeah.
And like I feel like that's another big thing that's happening in metalcore, deathcore right now is you get like rap verses. I don't love that.
I don't either.
So I don't know.
I mean, I really liked Silent Planet's first 2 albums until it turned into this, and it was the same thing. He started like sing-songy speaking.
Yeah.
It, and I'm just over like really industrial stuff, and I'm like, I don't want to go to a rave.
It almost feels like you don't even need really instruments anymore. It feels like it feels like almost all of this could, and I mean, I know that they're playing guitar and stuff like that, but you could probably make the majority of this just on the computer.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think that that's like the big difference is it feels so digitalized. So overall though, like, again, I don't mind it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think it's absolutely horrible by any means.
Right.
Act 1, Elysium 77, that song's actually pretty solid. Yeah.
Yeah. No, agreed.
I'm trying to
like if I had to pick a song that had the industrial stuff that we're talking about, it would probably be this.
yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
And IOUN, the second from last song, that has some pretty cool riffs in it. There's some interesting parts to that one. Was it Act 3, Wither? That one gets a little bit more like Devil Wears Prada-ish, it feels like. Yeah. But like it's another like fine song. Like this actually feels a lot like Devil Wears Prada to me. Chemical, like the Act, part of like Transit Blues. You know what I mean? You get a lot of this kind of stuff in those types of albums. So overall, it's a fine album. Like if I'm ranking albums, obviously Unbreakable number 1. I'm going to throw in the 2005 album that they made, having the Heart for War that you can't find unless you're looking on YouTube. And then I would put self-titled. And then honestly, Vicious World and Lost Boy to me are just like, they're different, right? One's metal, one's EDM, electronic, deathcore. Right. So
yeah. So I'm just 1 through 4 right up the list.
Just go straight down.
Yeah, that's just how I am. So, yeah.
So the question now is, how do you actually feel about these guys? If they were to come through, would you go see My Children, My Bride?
If
Not
it was
set list.
not
You
knowing
don't
their
know their
set
set
list,
list. Yeah.
I guess it depends. It depends on who they're playing with. If they came with like No Cure or something, yeah, I'll go see it. I'm not even that big of a No Cure fan, but if they play with No Cure, they're gonna play a heavier set. Right? If they play now and they're coming through with like a Silent Planet or bands like that, then like, nah, I'm probably not going.
Okay. That's fair. What if it's just themselves and they're being supported by locals? So the only band that right, is My Children, My Bride.
What's up with all the hard questions?
I'm just curious.
I don't know.
Just curious.
Yeah, no, I'm just joking. I don't know. I don't know. Again, there's still a lot. I don't know.
I don't think this is where I stand with these guys these days. I love his vocals, no matter what. Like Matt Hastings' vocals, they might be just kind of generic mid-tone kind of thing like that. For whatever reason, I've always connected with him. I think that they're awesome. I probably wouldn't like go out of my way to like change plans and stuff like that. But if it was just like a weeknight or a weekend and I was just like around, I'd go see these guys. Yeah. Like I'd pay to go see My Children, My Bride still. So,
yeah, if it was, if they're playing with people, it would depend on who it is. If it's just themselves, I probably am not going.
Yeah.
So unless it's an Unbreakable anniversary.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I put that caveat.
Now, if it's
you don't know the set list,
I know. If it's an Unbreakable anniversary tour,
without question,
I'd sell a hand or something for it. I'd go dig up some old like basketball jerseys that I would wear, because that's what you wear. You wear basketball shorts and a tank, like a basketball jersey.
Oh yeah,
with like Vans shoes on.
Oh yeah,
that's what we were wearing to shows like this and spin kicking everyone.
Yeah. No, they definitely leaned into the look, the snake bites, the long hair, the headbands, all that kind of stuff. My Children, My Bride encompassed it.
He was even at Furnace Fest, right?
Yeah, he hopped up on stage with No Cure.
Yeah, and you're just like,
yeah,
looks exactly the same.
Hair's a little longer, but yeah. So, man,
I mean,
I don't know.
This has been one of the hardest things about doing this podcast and talking about some of these bands is like, it's like the saying, like, don't meet your heroes, Don't
like listen past your favorite album.
Yeah, kind of. Like I go back and listen to some of these bands and I'm just like, man, I just don't know anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
See, and like I'm obviously a little bit more deathcore. I don't mind it. You know what I mean? And I think that that's why I wanted to pick this band this week, is because I knew the direction that they had gone. I hadn't listened to it a lot, but I knew the direction they had gone. And I didn't mind going through and listening to all of it. I still enjoy them. Like I said, after listening to them now, I would go see My Children, My Bride again without knowing like a set. So I don't know if I would have before this, to be honest. Right. You know what I mean? It would have been like, play Unbreakable and I'm there. Now it's like, okay, yeah, I'll go see you guys. So, I don't know, it's fun. It's interesting.
It's a cool band. Just so many fond memories.
I know.
Of listening to them,
Absolutely. And I am the Master Chief. No one can mess with me. What every kid knew.
Everyone did.
Everyone who went to the show.
In the prayer, dude, it was wild. Freaking watching them play that song and like,
dude,
you couldn't climb on top of enough people to get to the stage to scream, "I am the Master Chief." Like so stupid, but it was incredible.
So fun.
Yeah,
so fun. So cool. Well, we've got a couple interviews scheduled. So after this one, we got a cool interview coming up next. And then we'll probably, I don't know, maybe another nostalgia, maybe some locals again. We'll just have to see. I think we've kind of burned through a lot of locals, so we might have to start filling that pipeline again.
I promised that I would do a polka band if somebody recommended me a polka band, and they did. So I don't know, dude. Maybe you'll see like a 30-minute episode on polka music here in the next little bit. I don't know.
Maybe we could do a 5-minute segment on polka music.
I'm a man of my word, okay? And when I told these guys I will do a polka band if you give me one, and they did, I will complete with my word. So,
well, that might be the first solo Kyle episode then.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll do that. I'll give you the history of polka music, where it comes from.
You gotta strap horns to yourself and just sit there and tap your chest.
Dude, you need to go get some sleep, dude.
Yeah, because like if I was actually not sleep deprived, I wouldn't be sitting there tapping my chest.
You would not be doing what you just did. So go to bed, man.
All right, man. Peace.
See ya. Stop.